The first race of the season is finally under the belt, and it seems like Mercedes won't do any better than the previous season. Although the team has hinted at potential changes in the first couple of weeks of the season, it's very evident that they may not help Russell and Hamilton that much in terms of catching up to Ferrari and Red Bull. Well, as a matter of fact, it seems like Mercedes and Ferrari will have to catch up to Aston Martin right now. Toto Wolff had a lot to say about this matter, and as things stand, we're going to see one very angry team principal in the remainder of the 22 races. Ever since the free practice sessions and the qualifying on Saturday, it's been evident that Mercedes doesn't have a promising pace to fight for the win. Truth be told, their pace wasn't even enough to fight for podium finishes as well. But deep down, we all hoped that Mercedes has something hidden in the W14 that could propel Hamilton and Russell to high points finishes. That was the very case in every season up until the last one. And while we hoped for a different scenario than the one in 2022, it seems like we won't receive it. For all the Mercedes fans out there, please don't throw rocks at me. I'm just sharing information from the Brackley-based squad and making obvious observations, which stand as they are. Mercedes don't have it in themselves to fight for podium wins. That has been told by Russell, Hamilton, and has recently been confirmed by Toto Wolff as well. However, what Wolff had to say about this matter will surely anger you guys. But before we get to that, let's see what actually happened during the race weekend and why Mercedes has a lot to improve in the following period. The qualifying went basically the same as it did last year, with Russell and Hamilton positioning themselves at P6 and P7. The difference between Verstappen and both Mercedes drivers was basically the same as it was in 2022, around 0.7 of a second in favour of Red Bull. And if we hoped for one thing in 2023, it's that Mercedes won't have to prey on the reliability issues of Ferrari and Red Bull in terms of finishing on the podium or winning the race. While they did receive their fair share of luck, with Leclerc facing the same destiny as Verstappen last year, retiring his car at the ending stages of the race, the pace of the W14 just wasn't there. The start of the race was definitely something Mercedes can be proud of, with Hamilton passing Russell and Alonso and slowly but surely closing the gap to Sainz. However, the tyre strategy and the overall pace seemed to favour Aston Martin much more than Mercedes, with both Hamilton and Russell losing places to Alonso and Stroll, respectively, in the latter stages of the race. What is very hard to witness for Mercedes is the fact that Aston Martin is actually the company that buys the engine from them. So for you to have a team that you supply with engines beat you in the long run just shows that there's much work to be done. Don't get us wrong, if there's anyone with enough experience to take it up to Red Bull, it's Hamilton. But without the right car, the 7-time world champion is just powerless. And furthermore, Russell lost the battle with Stroll, and we all saw how Stroll almost took his teammate in the first lap of the race. It's definitely a bitter pill to swallow for the Silver Arrows, but they do need to look in the next race and find potential solutions for their car. This is something that Wolff has spoken about recently, and before we tell you how he slammed his own team after they lost the battle to Aston Martin, something that has been hinted at throughout the whole weekend, let us reveal the plans of the Brackley-based squad in the next period in terms of the design of the car. One thing is for sure, the no-pod side pod design doesn't work for Mercedes. It's innovative, that's for sure, and with them being the only team on the grid that adopted this design, it just goes to show that they put a lot of trust in it to deliver results. Russell, on the other hand, thought it was very convenient that the W14 will be even stronger with the narrower side pods compared to 2022. But he's met the harsh reality of losing the battle to one of the worst drivers on the grid. At least that's how Lance was perceived until the last season. This is something that will definitely change at Mercedes, and after the cold shower that they received from the team that buys their engine, this is practically no longer a topic of discussion. Even though Mike Elliott said that the team will keep the side pod design with no pods, Wolff has said otherwise. The mentality and the belief of the 7-time world champion do have their own weight when it comes to developing the car, and when Hamilton said that we're not good enough and that we have mountains to climb, Wolff and the others had to listen and adapt. What Wolff had to say, however, was the pinnacle of slamming the side pod design, and when talking about where the team is headed after the fiasco on Sunday, the Austrian added, "We're absolutely in the same choir. I don't think that this package is going to be competitive eventually. We gave it our best go over the winter, and now we all just need to regroup, sit down with the engineers, be totally non-dogmatic and ask what is the development direction we want to pursue in order to be able to win races. We hit our targets. That's why I say we gave it our best shot. But the moment comes where the stopwatch comes out, and that showed us that we're not good enough. At this team, we blame the problem, not the person. I have responsibilities. I need to fire myself if I want to do something." Truer words have never been spoken, according to many F1 experts and Mercedes fans. And now it's up to see what's going to be changed on the W14. What is a very interesting hint is that these changes will come as soon as possible, because if Mercedes want to catch up to the other teams, in this instance Aston Martin instead of Red Bull and Ferrari, they would need to react quick. But adopting a different design is one thing, and delivering results with it is another. What does seem to be the biggest issue for Mercedes is the fact that they won't have proper knowledge of the new concept that they plan to implement. And this is where many fans ask themselves, did Mercedes' stubbornness take the team too far? Nonetheless, the reality is that the W14 is currently slower than the AMR23. And for the sake of the old days, we saw Alonso and Hamilton going at each other in a toe-to-toe battle. Who would have thought that the 7th team in 2022 is going to challenge Mercedes in 2023, and that the race will not even be close between these drivers? Wolff, for one, just doesn't seem to understand how his team fell off so much. And while he blames it on the side pod concept, it just seems that the entire philosophy of the W14 isn't synergizing with the performances that Russell and Hamilton are investing in it. When talking about Aston Martin and how Alonso held a racing lesson for Hamilton and Russell, Wolff added, "They, Aston Martin, gained 2 seconds in half a year, and their car is half ours. From the engine, gearbox and rear suspension, and using the same wind tunnel. There are a lot of parallels, and we need to acknowledge that they've done an outstanding job." Well, if there is one team that can pick up the pieces from the absolute shatter that happened in Sakir, that is definitely Mercedes. The team is expected to understand what went wrong and potentially bring upgrades that won't just bring the gap closer to Aston Martin, but could potentially challenge Ferrari, or who knows, maybe Red Bull for the race finish. This is exactly how the 2022 season started, and we've seen how much improvement Mercedes made with one of the most troublesome cars that has exited production. But at this point, the question needs to be asked. Are Hamilton and Russell currently driving a car that will pose a bigger challenge compared to the 2022 Challenger? The first race definitely said so, because although porpoising wasn't to be seen or witnessed, Mercedes just lost the pure pace compared to Ferrari and Red Bull. On top of that, they got caught by a team that was labelled as copycats a couple of years ago, and this is definitely something that will serve as a wake-up call for Toto and his team. What do you think about Wolff's statements on the W14? Do you think that the team will adopt a concept that will bring them wins and podiums in the future? Let us know in the comments below.